All right, well, we're back here at VIVE, as we like to say, live at VIVE, and today we've got Will Conaway, who's the Chief Growth Officer at HCI, which is a Tech Mahindra company. Will, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here, Dr. Silverman.
Oh, please, we can do away with the honorifics. You can call me Adam.
There we go.
Just cozy up a little bit closer to the microphone for me.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect. So tell me a little bit about HCI and your role and a little bit about your background.
Sure. HCI is a company that's been around for almost about 15, 16 years now. Started out as just a staff organization that did a lot of EMR work. That has grown over the years. Now we would consider ourselves a digital transformation company. In fact, our mission is we are a digital transformation company who's working toward the well-being of the patients and our organization. Our mission is to be the trusted partner within digital transformation. It's an organization that rolls up to the Tech Mahindra Group, which is about a $5.2 billion a year organization. And yes, I always do get asked, it is part of the Mahindra Group, which is the $22 billion juggernaut out of India, making tractors. And
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, they've been showing a lot of ads on the Mahindra Group on the tractors on the news in the morning. So same company, but we are the health, life science, and the healthcare part of that organization. Do a lot of different things there.
So can you go through your portfolio a little bit? You say digital transformation, which to me is a huge spectrum. Is there a particular focus that you have, or is there a particular strategy that you guys are trying to execute on?
Absolutely. That's a great question. There is. And I would say that when we talk about digital transformation, obviously you asked me that question because digital transformation actually changes the way every part of your business is done. It touches all aspects. It's not just technology. It is business, it's operations. It's a total paradigm shift in how you do business. So, and I would also say one of the tricky parts about that, kind of like population health for a physician, is it's hard to define. I think everybody would define it a little bit different, and in such, it can sometimes be a kind of a nebulous item to talk about. But the things that we really focus on are like EHR optimization, applications, culture around Agile, how we would change from waterfall to Agile, physical and digital design being things around products and architecture. We do a lot of automation. We have several customers, one large one in Minnesota, another one down in Texas where we're doing a lot of RPA. That's always an interesting topic because it is a product that you have to be very careful with, because if you ask people what they wanted, they would tell you, I want to move this file to that file. But there's no productivity in it. There's no value. So we really have to get in there and look at the things around supply chain, RCM or finance. Those are the big hits. Those are the things you make your money off of. And I'm not talking just from our end.
Right.
That's the healthcare.
Yeah,
yes, exactly. That's where they see their benefit. Lots of analytics, do a lot of analytics, and have partner companies that do that with us. Infrastructure, full infrastructure organization, everything from API, security, fire, 5G is a big one we're working on now, and that's a great product, the 5G, because I see that opening up something we have never had before, and that's operating rooms becoming much more efficient and it's going to drive technology through the consumer. So people are going to start being able to develop products that are better. I think you're going to see a lot more cameras within the operating room, a lot of equipment that's going to be much quicker, and you're going to have on-the-spot analytics as 5G becomes quicker. The other thing we do is we have a strategy. We have a whole portfolio line called Strategy Next, where we work with people doing the foundational things all the way to a full-blown strategy, what they would have. I mean, we're looking at going back and helping people from the basics. If you're talking foundational, talk about your mission, your vision, your values, the elevator speech. How would you get that together? And then we move all the way up to where you're putting your balanced scorecards together, looking at your EBITDA, looking at your your dollars and your bottom line. And that's all work that we've been growing over these last couple years. So a lot of big bets going on, a lot of new direction for this organization. It's a very exciting place to be right now.
It sounds like there's a lot of professional services that are involved, and you're doing consulting, but it also sounds like there is solution. I don't know, are you building your own solutions, or are you going out looking for best in breed and trying to help customers?
Both.
Okay.
We do. We have our TechM is an app development company too. We have a lot of proprietary apps, a lot of IP going on, but also we have a lot of partner companies. We have some wonderful companies and portfolio companies that we have, like Born Group, which is, I believe, 25% of Fortune 500 companies have their platform on their internet and other things on the Born Group. We own MadPow, which is a human-centric company that really worries about the patient's experience and making sure things are very well done. We have a video that fell over on us here, so
that's all right.
all part of the live at VIVE
that's
here.
Right, exactly. That's
you gotta love it.
Yeah,
nothing like live television here. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that rolling right now with us. So it's a combination of both.
So when I created the concept for this podcast, it was the lens really was there's a problem in healthcare, and it goes back to really a lot of work that I did around value-based care. We all recognize that incentives are misaligned. We all recognize that in this country we spend a ton of money on healthcare, and there are a lot of people that believe we're not getting the outcomes that we should be getting for the money that we're spending. And so, I translate that into, well, the industry then is broken. So I'm curious if from your vantage point and how you steer your company, if you believe healthcare is broken, and if it is, how do you go about your digital transformation? How do you approach digital transformation so that healthcare can right the ship and fix itself?
I would say there's nothing broken in healthcare that healthcare can't fix.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to quoting the president on that one, kind of twist there. But, really what we need to do is we need to go back, and I think it really is driven with consumerism. We have to go back and really see what the patients want. We need to drive everything that way. Just like digital transformation is, so is healthcare needs to be driven by that. I think there's been a lot of things we've seen, you just look at telehealth that has boomed, or contact desk, service desk. A lot of things have really changed that are really in benefit of the patient. And when we talk about telehealth, the CMS had some new rules here in the last year that is allowing the patient to be much more part of their episode of care. They have more access to the records.
Yep.
They have much more say in what they're doing. So healthcare will naturally get better. I will say healthcare as an industry is different than, like, let's say, the automotive industry, the oil industry, the movie industry, in that it moves much slower. Change is slow in healthcare, and it always has been.
Why?
But it's a cultural thing, and I'm looking across the desk here, and I'm glad we've got cameras in between us and do things. I think the physicians themselves have been, a little reluctant to some of the technologies, and there's reason for that too. I can't just say it's all physicians. A lot of the technology we have, extra clicks, less time with the patients, systems that are frustrating, and I always say there's three things we know about any major IT project going on in healthcare. One, we know it's going to be behind schedule. Two, we know it's going to be over budget. And three, we know it's not going to deliver the way the expectations of the physicians were. So when I always ask physicians, what's the best system you ever had? They always want to tell me the last one.
Right.
And can it be fixed? It will be fixed. Technology, I won't say technology can solve it all. I would say technology is the easier part to solve things than the human side. People are harder to change. Strategies are easier to change than culture. I mean, as Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Right.
So, I mean, it's no different than that. It is a way of thinking, a way of doing things different. I think we're starting to see, as patients become more involved in their episode of care, that'll change. I think physicians burnout, that's something we have to be extremely concerned about. It's about a $7.4 billion a year business. I know several physicians I talk to. That's something that's got to stop. And it's not just the physicians, it's the nurses, it's the staff.
Exactly.
And that has even rolled over to IT. And I think it's part of the great resignation we're seeing, but it's also, it really hit hard in our healthcare system, where we have to get that under control too. We have to make the job not so miserable that people don't want to do it. I think the other thing that will be a real problem with healthcare, and when I was growing up, and I'm not going to say how old I am because I'm still young, but when I was growing up, the brightest of the brightest kids became doctors.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, that's where you went. You were a doctor or a lawyer. And now we're seeing the brightest of the bright kids getting more into the technology end.
Right.
And it's creating a kind of a bad situation in healthcare where less physician there, the shortages, over the next, they're saying by 2030 was it 125,000 physician shortage. You can't have those type of numbers and have a great healthcare system. So that needs to be rectified. There needs to be more incentives for doctors to be there. The other thing that'll be tougher is value-based care and management. It's a great thing, and in theory, we all know that it has to go that way. But once again, it could actually affect the amount of money that physicians make, which once again can mean that less people want to get involved in that, and it makes their job tougher. There will be changes. I believe technology in Silicon Valley will be a driver in this, and they can help change things. Companies like Solva, who are coming out with products that make the patient experience throughout the whole episode. It makes it easier when you're scheduling things, it makes it easier for your pharmacy refills. Those are the things that we need to correct in the United States too, because a lot of you can be the greatest doctor in the world, but we all know that It's hard to get people to stop smoking. It's hard to get people to change their eating habits, their exercise. So this is a cultural thing within the United States too. And oddly enough, I work with a lot of people throughout the globe. I teach at Cornell University, and I do master's level courses for healthcare, and they're healthcare administration courses. And it doesn't matter if I'm talking to someone in France, I'm talking to someone in Canada, right, Germany, or the United States. We're all experiencing these same problems. And I think sometimes we think it's just the United States. It's not getting the big bang out of the buck. It's everywhere. Everybody has its challenges. There's no perfect system for it. But let's talk a little bit about automation. You brought that up earlier with RPA. What is the automation's business strategy for HCI in terms of what processes are you going after? What kinds of challenges have you seen? What's the uptake in the marketplace been like? Yeah, most of the healthcare systems I've talked with, and I think it's pretty standard, even talking with people at other systems that I'm not doing business with, the automation needs to change the strategy. And here's why I say that. It goes back to what I was saying, that if I go in and I'm selling automation to a healthcare organization, and they tell me what they want, normally what happens, the CEO, the CFO pushes that down to the people in departments who don't understand how the business works. I hate to say that, but a lot of times, and I've been in healthcare a long time, and in operational part too, not just the IT part of it. If I ask nurses what they want, they're not going to give me the same story as a physician. Physician's not going to give me the same story as someone in HIM. Correct. It's the same person who's going to be, running the hospital from, an operational standpoint. We have to get to the things that make sense within healthcare with automation, and that way it makes it more attractive for people to do it. The other problem that I've seen with things around automation is that I always say, as a CIO when I ran, you only have so much political clout. You're selling the two people. First, if I'm coming in, someone's talking to me, if I have a CIO, I have to understand what's going to go on with that product, what the benefits are, because it's not the sales guy selling it. It's going to be the CIO that has to take it to the board, the CEO. They have to get that approval. So there's a two-step process there. So you always have, you need, as a salesperson or anybody on the sales end of things, you have to be able to sell it twice. And you have to be able to teach the person. Exactly, exactly. You have to be able to teach the person it's going in there. So with automation, the other problem that we'll have to fight over the next couple of years, automation's going to be there, cloud's going to be there, robotics, everything you can think of. That stuff's all going to happen. It's a little bit of a slow sell, in that if I'm running a place, I only have so much money. As a CEO, they only have so much money. So if I'm a CIO and I'm going in there, I have so much political clout, is that what I want to try to sell them? It's harder to sell robotics. It's harder to sell process improvement than it is selling security right now. People are more worried about that. Nobody wants their brand damaged. So you have to be able to sell the product at the right time and the timing. The cloud is on the timing's here now. We're starting to see that grow. I think automation's a little behind that. The more progressive organizations who are trying to do something special and even increase their brand. Right. We see that with genomics clinics at some places. That the ability to have great things within your organization is also a little bit of an advertisement. That's why genomics are popular within healthcare, because when you go in and you're looking at that, if you think they have a genomics clinic, they must be able to fix my broken leg, they must be able to fix a cold very easily if they can do something like that. So there's a little bit of salesmanship. As a CIO, there's a little bit of timing. I think robotics will have its day. I think it's going to be with 5G. I think the two are hooked together, so I think you're looking 2-3 years out where you're going to start seeing it become commonplace. It's commonplace now with talk only. It will grow within the next 48 months. By 5 years from now, 5G will be fully rolled out, and I think you're going to see robotics boom in operating rooms. You're going to see it just boom everywhere. It's going to become a doctor's best friend. So educate me, what's 5G got to do with it? 5G enables a quicker response in latency times. Okay. So you're going to have quicker response to machinery, you're going to have quicker response to cameras, you're going to have quicker response to everything. It opens up door for manufacturers also to be able to really start bringing in new products and new innovations that once seemed like Dick Tracy. Now it's stuff that can actually work. From a growth strategy, since I'm assuming that rolls up to you as the Chief Growth Officer, what slice of the pie is automation for your business right now? It's a very small part right now. It's a big bet, we would call it. When I say it's a big bet, that doesn't mean we're rolling the dice thinking it's not going to happen. We know it's going to happen. When I call it a big bet, it means it's a couple years out probably to really boom. We have other things that I would call big bets that are right here now, like cloud. We just saw that today. I had a session earlier today talking with cloud with a major healthcare organization in Pennsylvania who's able to take Microsoft Azure, and actually put Epic into the cloud. They're one of the innovators of this. People are doing that now. When they see that happening, people get excited.
Right.
You know, they know that it's the money savings at first isn't always what you might think of it. It's going to be in the storage, but it opens you up to being able to do things much quicker. They were able to set up COVID response things when COVID hit, almost instantaneous, where before it would taken hours to set things up. They could do it in minutes.
Right.
And reverse. So you're going to see cloud hit. I think that you're still going to see things around EMR optimization. We talk about big bets. That's still here to go. I also, as a physician, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I think EHR systems, it's going to be 2.0 in the next couple of years.
Yep.
Something's got to change. I think it's going to be much more portable. It's going to be quicker. It's going to be streamlined. I think telehealth, virtual health is going to become a bigger part of that. And that also gives us something that in the United States you talk about, can Silicon Valley fix things?
Right.
Here's something they can fix almost immediately with technology,
Yep.
and that is good access to quality care no matter where you're at. And technology can do that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was reading something on my way over here today that sort of described the increase in healthcare spending over the last 50 years. 50 years ago it was a $70 billion industry, and now it's a $4.1 or $4.7 trillion industry. And I mean, healthcare is one of the few industries that hasn't figured out how to decrease the cost of delivering its services.
Yeah.
Or at least the incentives are so misaligned that there's no incentive to reduce the costs. And so, as we think about EMR, 2.0, I think we've got to talk about something that is far less offensive to the bottom line of an enterprise EHR system, on-prem, EHR system that tries to be everything to everybody. And honestly, that was meaningful use fueled growth in those large companies. And I think health systems didn't know any better at the time, but now they're much more educated in terms of what doesn't work and I guess also what works. So, I think that's an area that is, I agree with you, is ripe for transformation or disruption or whatever you want to call it.
Yep. Disruptive transformation,
right.
maybe. Yep.
So what I like working at a small company like Syllable is, having been on the provider side for 30 years and, interacting with really smart people who are in some cases half my age, is getting them to realize, sort of the mission that we're on. And the mission that we're on is to make a patient's life better. Because as I tell them, we're all patients, or we're all going to be patients, or we have had a family member that has had an experience. So I'll ask you, in terms of your own personal experience, have you had sort of a seminal healthcare experience that I would describe, as extraordinary, and I'll let you decide whether that's extraordinarily bad or extraordinarily good. Well,
first, I'll have to correct you. You said that, working with people half your age, although I look at I'm not half your age. Yeah. So. But no, I mean, I personally, I had a mother who had 3 heart attacks, had severe diabetes, and I would say that was my moment of watching her go through her episodes of care or with different things. And it was not smooth. It was not smooth at all. It was very uncomfortable. I know every time it seemed like, she was a absolute frequent flyer on everything you can think of. It was so bad that she had to go on dialysis. My dad learned to do dialysis so he could do it at home. One of the few people who could do that and did it in a quick period of time.
Yep.
But when I heard her say that every time I go to the doctor, I have to fill out the same paperwork, I was there, and I was just there yesterday. Those are the things that when you hear, it makes miserable experience. And I know you guys have a great product around scheduling and those things. That's what we need to do. We need to make healthcare seamless. It needs to fit into the person's lifestyle. Even no matter how sick they are, it's still a person who needs things in their lifestyle. It needs to fit into their family's lifestyle. When we can start to do that, we're going to see people possibly change the culture and be able to get things done. But it's also a lot of patient education. I mean, drug refills, as we know, are miserable. My mom had such problems with that. I mean, it gets hard for people when they have 30, 40, 50 medications that they're taking. I'm not probably exaggerating when they were 50, but it seemed like at times when I'd see her pill box, it was pretty ridiculous.
Right.
It's hard for people to know when to take them, how to take them. That's where it just, I watched it kind of suck the will out of her. It just sucked the desire out of her to go see a doctor. It became a miserable experience. Nobody should have a miserable experience, seeing the physician. And it's what we have now. I think technology will help clean some of this up if it can do automatic scheduling, like blockchain. We're seeing people use that for credentialing of physicians, which is great. I mean, the physician, that's a win for them. It's a win for the hospital. It's a win for the patients. And I think the other thing we need to do is for the healthcare systems, we got to get the RCM in place too. The denials are crazy in some of these places for doctors who didn't check a box and didn't do that. It's hurting everybody. So there is so much in healthcare that Silicon Valley can correct, that I think that, and I like to say, I think it's these changes you talk about as we talked here, I think Silicon Valley will change the changes. I don't think it's going to be government getting involved. I don't think it's going to be the physicians who are going to be able to change it as much. I mean, they're still doing the patient care part of it. It's hard to do the patient care and be an advocate for changing things at the same time. You just can't do that. But I think Silicon Valley will be able to make the changes necessary to get that ball rolling. And they already have. We've already seen that.
If you didn't have to worry about the running of the business, if you could just be a solution shop, and didn't have to worry about how many you sold and how much money you were going to make each quarter off of each unit of sale, where would you focus? Where would you focus the company right now?
Definitely on the consumer experience. It'd be 100% on, and it's kind of where we're doing anyway, because I think that will, and I mean this from a business standpoint, I think it's good for the customer. I think it drives business, and even if it didn't drive business, you have to get the consumer involved. I think everybody has a right to the quality of healthcare, and everybody has a right to being involved in their healthcare.
So 10 years ago when I stood up at a grand rounds and I said we need to treat patients like consumers because that's what they are, half of the physician audience grumbled and just about got up and walked out. Do you think patients are consumers? Is it interchangeable?
I think it's becoming more so. I hate to call a patient a consumer because it seems to be degrading in some ways. Yeah. And that's why I guess we do call them patients, even though maybe we should be calling it, patientization or so, but we need to come up maybe with a term for that. But ultimately, there is no other aspect in your life that you do anything, you buy anything, that you would allow your healthcare to be that bad.
Right.
I mean, everything is kind of slow going. It's miserable. It's a laborious process. It's not just tough on the patient. I talk to the physicians daily. It's tough on the providers. They're not happy with it. It's tough on the IT people. There is a lot to change. Can we do this? Yes. As a group, we have to do it. I think we need to have more formations, more steering type committees of people working together with the doctors, with the IT people, with government. There's a lot of organizations. I know AMA and FA or Federation of American Hospitals. Those companies are trying to do a lot of things. Chime's doing some great things. We need more interaction to get this in. But I think when we look at these boards and we look at these steering committees, we need to have patients on there too.
Yep,
as soon as the patient's on there, well, you can see some progress.
Have you ever had a healthcare experience that delighted you?
Personally, no. I don't even like seeing my optometrist. That puff of
the puff of air.
Oh boy, that's just really bothers me. No, I can never think of that. I think the most joy I ever have received is something that I think everybody who works in IT should have to do is patient rounding. When you see the patients and talk to them, sometimes you do get joy as you go through, but you also get a really good perspective of what's bothering them, and just ask them, hey, how's your stay been? What has been going on? And if people in IT know healthcare better, healthcare IT will be better.
It probably can be extended to everybody at every function at the health system.
Absolutely.
If they walked the floors and did the jumbo walks or whatever you want to call them.
Get your Six Sigma stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. I think people would really benefit from it. And that's what really frustrates me is we are all going to require healthcare services. And yet we create these opportunities for care that are to your point, are suboptimal. And we expect suboptimal. It's not like I walk in and it's like, oh, today is going to be, I'm feeling it. I'm going in to see my primary care doctor and I know it's going to be a great experience. It's like, how bad is it going to be? How long am I going to have to wait? And having been on the provider side, you do sometimes have to have patients wait. I mean, but part of that is artificial because I'm trying to keep to an every 15-minute schedule, and you just can't take care of human beings on an every 15-minute schedule. Why do you come to a conference like this?
I come to learn. I enjoy seeing all the great products that are out here. I mean, you guys have a great product. I mean, there are so many wonderful groups out here trying to do what is right for the patient. And I truly believe that at these conferences, the people who show up, I mean, I don't think this is about selling. I think this is about learning, sharing, getting cooperations together, team efforts together where people can really help the bottom line, which is the patient.
Right.
If you're not worried about the patient outcome, you're in trouble. And I always say to all our people that I work with and all the people, being in healthcare IT is being part of healthcare. And if you don't believe that, you shouldn't be in healthcare IT. Go find IT somewhere else, because we are part of the patient's episode of care, and a major part of that. There is very little that technology doesn't touch, from the minute you walk in the door to the minute you leave, and that includes everybody, every stakeholder you can think of. That's the patient, that's the doctors, that's the people holding the door. It's every part of that hospital. Right. Every part of your episode of care is affected somewhere by technology. Do you build your business internally, or do you partner with companies to deliver services? Both. We do a lot internally that we do, but like all companies, you can't have every facet of a business. So we have alliance teams that we work with, some great large companies, great portfolio companies. And we continue to grow through acquisition and even through merger. I'm looking at a few organizations right now that might make sense for us to grow. It fills a gap. It will help the patient. It will serve our needs. Great. And last question: if you had an opportunity to have dinner with a health system CEO who was sort of wondering, maybe a little lost, not quite sure, what their digital strategy should be, how should they approach innovation or transformation, what 2 or 3 pieces of advice might you give that particular CEO? One, I would go back and tell them that don't feel bad. That's my first piece of advice, because I talked to a lot of CEOs who asked me that. There's only about 10-15% at most, and we've even seen the number lower. When we ask people, what does your digital transformation strategy look like? Most healthcare systems don't have that. I would tell them that I would highly encourage a new role, and that's the Chief Digital Officer. Think about getting someone in who has a total focus on that. And the third thing I would tell them is pair up your strategies. When you look at things, I always say healthcare organizations have a couple different strategies. And this is where IT can get in trouble sometimes too. IT just doesn't have an IT strategy. Right. If it doesn't roll up to the organization's overall strategy, that's not much of a strategy. And one of the things I find, there's often a disconnect. I mean, us in IT showing physicians shiny objects. I mean, you like seeing them too. Everybody great technology. You kind of get lost. It has to add value. It goes back to, we mentioned Peter Drucker here earlier. It goes back to what Peter Drucker wrote in 1954 in his book Management. If it doesn't add value to the consumer or the customer, why are you doing it? Make sure the things you do add value. You only have so much money to spend. Put it on the focus on the things that make a difference. Great. I think it's a great place to stop. Will Conaway, thanks so much for being on the podcast. We appreciate it. Greatly enjoyed. And I hope you'll come back. Thank you, Adam. All right. Great. Nice to meet you. Thanks again. That was awesome.